Hey folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. Here's Chris on Chris White Africa on the Indaba Africa channel. Well, I'm kind of excited today. Very exciting here. Now, you guys who follow this channel, who've been following it for a long time, particularly in South Africa, know that I'm very familiar and friends with Jeremy Nell from Germ Warfare, the political cartoonist and satirist. But let's little secret confession here. He's not my favorite political cartoonist and satirist. That's the gentleman who's about to come on the screen. So let me bring him on right now. This is AF Branco, Tony Branco. Tony, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Chris?
Well, I'm doing fine. Kind of excited here. I've been looking forward to this, and thank you so much for offering to come on. You were very quick to respond when I reached out to you through LinkedIn. I think is where I reached out to you. And you're like, "Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to come on." And it's not always easy to get some guest on, but you were quite. I don't want to say you were easy because that might come across wrong, but it was. But it was it was quite pleasant to reach out to you to get you to come on here. So now you live out.
Don't let that secret out.
No, we won't let that secret out. So you're out in the Pacific Northwest, are you not?
Correct, I am.
All right.
Very beautiful place.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. I spent an entire summer out there, the summer of '96 when I was teaching at ROTC at Iowa State University. Went out to Fort Lewis, spent the entire summer out there. It was quite interesting. I will say this, though. You can have the red ants. Those things are vicious, man. They love to bite and not let go. Whew.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad was stationed in Fort Lewis.
Oh, okay. I understand they imported those.
Before he went to Korea. So.
Oh, before he went to Korea. Okay. So I understand that they imported those things from Germany, and I think that maybe might have been our worst import from Germany ever.
Right.
So listen, let's talk a little bit about this. You're a political cartoonist, and your work is all over. Folks, if you're not familiar with Tony Branco, take a look below the video, the description down there about what he does. He's known all over, certainly here in the United States. I'm not so sure about your profile abroad, but maybe we can raise a little bit. But I suspect that you probably don't have a lot of fans on the left side of the political aisle. I'm just saying.
Not very many at all. No. They have a tendency not to like me very much.
I can't understand why that is. I mean, any idea what that might be?
Me neither. But I always gauge how well I'm doing by how much they hate me. So
fair enough. That's a good point. So for folks who don't know, hey Tony, can you tell us a little bit about your political cartoons and where you draw your inspiration from? I guess the inspiration is probably pretty easy. All you have to do is watch daily events of this craziness going on.
Yeah, I get most of my ideas right off the news. Put my own little twist to it, try to communicate some kind of message. In the cartoon, you only have a little square, to be able to communicate. You don't have video, you don't have type per se. You can't really be long in words. It has to be an image that makes an impact and the impact that you're trying to make. I don't always succeed, but I always try to get that message across. Well, through drawing.
Well, I would have to say that from my perspective, I mean, I'm sure you have a few that don't hit the mark, but I haven't seen too many of your cartoons that don't hit the mark. In fact, let me, you won't be able to see this, but I'm going to bring this one up very quickly for folks on the screen. So hang on, folks. Let me see if I can get this up, and I'll have to take Tony and off the screen. Here we go. All right, so this is one he did last year, and this is Bernie Sanders holding up a long list of climate change agenda requirements that he would have. And Trump is standing there with a little chart in his hand with the arrow on the economy going up, employment historically high, wages up. And, of course, Bernie says, don't let that dictator stop us from controlling every aspect of your life. This is one I found particularly poignant, Tony. That was awesome to see the leftists with their demands that we must kowtow to what they want. And Trump's just standing over with the free market approach and going, what are you upset about here, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is where, and that's probably a good example of what I'm trying to communicate. I'm trying to educate, entertain, and and try to get my own personal view. I started out doing this as a way of venting my own feelings. Sometimes I think a lot of us out here in the trenches feel a little bit helpless as far as being able to make a difference or being able to sway any opinion. I started out, about 10 years ago, just venting, throwing my ideas and my cartoons out on social media. And I started gaining a little bit of a following, and it just kind of grew to what it is right now. And it's opened up a lot of doors as far as opportunities and things that have come out, and it's become a full-time job now.
Well, are you nationally syndicated? Or are these things getting all over the country? How does that work?
I am syndicated through creators. I have 4 or 5 different outfits that I draw for, and I'm also syndicated. I draw for Americans for Limited Government. I draw for Legal Insurrection, for Conservative Daily News, Flag and Cross. So those are the few that I actually draw for. They don't tell me what to draw. They're all my own opinions and my own ideas. So, but I feel fortunate that they've given me the platform and the place to do it.
Well, that was going to be my next question is, are you ever under any pressure to conform or change, or do you have free reign for what it is you'd like to do when you do your cartoons?
I have total free reign. I have nobody telling me what to draw and telling me how to draw it. Now, I've coordinated with some of my friends and that on certain cartoons, but it's all has to form into my perspective. I'm not a hired gun, so to speak, in that way. Somebody's not going to come along and say, well, I want you to do something that says this about Trump, and I want you to, and if I don't agree with it, I don't believe in it, I don't do it.
No, that's great. It's particularly a trying time for content creators, whether they're cartoonists or they're comedians or they're actors or political commentators. Unless you're super well known, it's difficult out there. People getting shadow banned, being removed from platforms. There's all kinds of censorship taking place. And now we should make a distinction here because the Constitution doesn't protect us from censorship from the private sector. It protects us from the government. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. So when I rail against the behavior of Twitter and other platforms, I also do it in the context that I know that they can get away with that, but it's the government we're protected from. But nonetheless, it's quite disturbing to see all these different people who have their voices silenced. Whether you're a fan or not of Katie Hopkins, she was removed from Twitter, took her off, and we see far more offensive things on Twitter from all over the political spectrum than Katie Hopkins, and they just didn't like her, so they took her off, and I think her 3.5 million followers went with her.
Mm-hmm. Tucker Carlson is being shadow banned and censored. Just saw that the other day. And we know that Tucker Carlson is not going to put out anything that hasn't been checked and checked out, fact checked and all that. So it's something that's just happening across the board. Unfortunate that's happening, but sad.
Well, Jeremy Nell, who's the political cartoonist who does germ warfare in South Africa, is quite biting in his cartoons. His drawing approach is a little bit different, but he's been getting deplatformed left and right. YouTube just stopped him from doing live streams last week. Didn't give him a valid reason. He had no strikes against his account for having ever violated the community standards. They just said you can't live stream. And of course, on YouTube, live streaming is one of the biggest ways people who are content creators actually make money because the super chats are a big part of it. And now he can't do that. So he's looking for alternative platforms. What I'd like to do, I'm not going to put you in the spot here, but I'd love to, and I've mentioned this to Jeremy, is that who goes by Germ, so we'll just call him Germ. But I've suggested that maybe it might be a very fascinating conversation to have both of you on here with me on a stream sometime in the future in which we talk about this, because he does cartoons also on the U.S., but mostly South Africa, or a mix of the two. And I think it'd be interesting to see your contrasting styles and the challenges you both face and the inspiration you draw. So maybe we'll do that at some point in the future.
Yeah, I'd be open to that. Yeah.
Excellent. That'd be really cool. But back to the Tucker Carlson thing. So let me share with you a little something, and let me get your thoughts. So I remember Tucker on CNN back when I could stomach watching CNN, when it actually occasionally reported news. That was a long time ago, by the way.
Yeah.
But so Tucker Carlson was on there with his little bow tie, and I had a hard time. I'm like, is this guy for real? Come on, what's this all about? Is he like the token conservative they've stuck on the panel here? And I listened to him, but I didn't find it particularly compelling. When Bill O'Reilly left Fox News, I wasn't heartbroken. I'd been a fan of O'Reilly, but he started to be seemed to be going a little too far in one direction for me, not politically, but just personally. And I was like, okay, well, he's leaving. That's fine. Although I still like Bill O'Reilly. But when Tucker came on, I was skeptical. I'll be honest. I was skeptical when he came on. I'm like, all right, these are big shoes. Whether you like Bill O'Reilly or not, this guy was the king of cable news. And right. Tucker's got some big shoes to fill. And is he up to the task? And he came out and I think a little bit uneven start. Every show has to get their feet. But I'm going to tell you, this guy is the single most dedicated and investigative journalist in my mind and television commentator on the planet. And he's been doing yeoman's work. And before I give you a chance to comment, let me go back to the first week of January when Tucker Carlson was on Fox News. And he said, listen, while you're all engaged in this very important impeachment process that's going on, obviously facetiously, he said that. He said, in the midst of all this, there's this dangerous virus in China, in Wuhan. The Chinese authorities lost control. They're arresting doctors, trying to warn the world. They're rounding up people. Millions have fled the city. This is likely to come to your doorstep. This is what we should pay attention to. That was the first week of January. And he was spot on. And he's been right on about almost all these things ahead of the news cycle. So he's either got a fantastic staff or he's just a brilliant guy. But I'll tell you what, I think he's the guy doing the most for the world right now, exposing what's going on.
Absolutely. I can't disagree with anything you said there. And I don't know if I can add anything to it, because that's exactly my thoughts on Tucker Carlson. He's the guy that's out there, he's doing it. And I can't say that about too many of them.
No, I agree with you. There are a few, I think, fine journalists and broadcasters still on television, but they're few and far between. They're hard to find. I mean, there's some talented people like Shannon Bream and Brett Baer that are on Fox News, but it's even getting thin beyond that these days, because I don't know what's going on with these news networks. They're so caught up in the gotcha moment. They got to get something out right now. So does that play a role in your cartoon work? Because there's always some sort of gotcha moment or event. And I suspect that sometimes, even though it's political satire, you probably kind of sit back and assess events and go, okay, where do I come in on this? Because maybe the facts are wrong, or maybe like the Breonna Taylor shooting, people misstate things. And then later on, not that you did a cartoon on that, I'm just saying, just give you an example of a news cycle item. Does it affect, does it affect what you're going to write, or do you have to delay sometimes?
Of course. There's times where I'm in the middle of drawing a cartoon that I think is really pointed, and suddenly the news changes on a dime and that cartoon becomes totally obsolete because all this other thing, these other topics are pouring in. Shannon Bream and Brett Baer have a specific job to do. They need to stay unpartisan, at least appear to be, but bring out points that the other media, that most of the mainstream media aren't bringing out. And I've seen Shannon Bream and Brett Baer do this. They do it from a unpartisan type of approach. And I appreciate that. And they allow, but here's the thing, they allow both sides to speak. And whenever you allow both sides to speak, that irritates the left horribly. They don't do that on CNN. They don't do that on MSNBC. So from that standpoint, one of my biggest pet peeves is media bias, and you'll find that in a lot of my cartoons over the last 10 years.
No, absolutely. It's and it's out there. It's hard to deny. But I mean, in that same vein there, Tony. So you're not exactly, but you're not advertising. You're not exactly unbiased in your cartoons, are you? You definitely have a political approach to them.
No, I am conservative, and I always come from the conservative viewpoint. Now, conservative to me is somebody, a true conservative, somebody that looks at both sides, takes a little bit from this and a little bit from that, and tries to come to some conclusion. And usually the conclusion that I fall on is that the conservative viewpoint is the best for America right now. I don't think these riots, I don't think that 47 years of Biden in politics has really helped America that much. I think that the last 47 months of Trump has totally outweighed what anything Biden has done in the last 47 years as far as helping America, making America better for Blacks, for Latinos, you name it, for women. If you go down the list of everything he's accomplished, it's amazing what this guy has done. And I was not a Trump supporter in the beginning.
Well, listen, Tony, you and I are in the same boat there. People who follow my channel know that quite famously that what I told a lot of my evangelical friends, because I have a lot. I'm not an evangelical, but I have a lot of evangelical friends, particularly here in Central Pennsylvania. That's sort of like the heartland of the Mid-Atlantic. Definitely, the Middle America, Midwestern sort of views are prominent right here in this part of the East Coast. But I told a lot of people, I said, listen, this guy's going to break your heart. I mean, listen, he was for abortion at one time. His positions are all over the place. He was not a lifelong Democrat, but a longtime Democrat. And I'm not convinced. I think that, and I'm being fully honest here. I said, I think that, listen, when it comes to some issues, Trump will be incredibly effective. I'm going to vote for the guy. I can't vote for a felon. She broke the law. I was a counterintelligence agent. I don't need a law. I don't need a trial to know she broke the Espionage Act. It's obvious. So I said I can't vote for her. So I'll vote for Donald Trump regardless. But he's P.T. Barnum. He's a charlatan. He's going to let you down. And I was wrong. This guy has, whatever Donald Trump's foibles, whatever his crass, his crude, his boorish behavior, he has governed unbelievably, probably the most conservative president, with the exception of Reagan, in the last century. I think that's a pretty accurate statement. His court appointments, his actions, his conservative view towards U.S. engagement in foreign policy, not being the policeman of the world. I mean, am I getting any of this wrong, Tony?
No, you're not. In fact, your views align with a lot of the way I thought in the beginning also. And it came down to whether I was going to vote for a woman who was going to abolish the Second Amendment, abolish free speech, abolish religion, and destroy the Constitution, or I was going to vote for somebody I wasn't sure about.
Yeah.
I went for the guy I wasn't too sure about. The guy that said he was going to defend all those things. I knew that Hillary was a bag of wind from the beginning. The same as I believe that Biden is. He's a 47-year politician who has done nothing but give a great smile. He has a great smile, and then tell everybody he's doing this and this and that for them while he's robbing their jobs and sending them over to China. So I felt exactly the way you did in the beginning. But it's turned out that I don't think Trump really was political. I think he had ideas in the back of his mind about what he thought about America. And I think he has always loved America, but he was a builder. He was a real estate guy. He needed to get things done. And how he got things done was negotiating with liberals and Democrats in New York, which is pretty tough to do, but he did it and he got his job done. Now he's president. Now he's trying to get some other things done. He's a doer. He's not a talker. He's not a political speaker. He's a doer. He tries to get things done, and everything that he has promised over the last probably 3 years, he's at least attempted to do, and you could see that he's attempted to do if he hasn't done it. That if it's building the wall, if it's benefiting the Black community, the Latinos, he is out there working every day to get these things done, and he's accomplished many of them.
Well, and actually, it's frustrating because the media essential blackout of the things that have actually been accomplished is absolutely insane. I mean, if you look at this, Tony, you talk about the Black community in America. I remember famously Trump said, "Hey, what do you got to lose?" You know, and guess what? He was right. What do you got to lose? It couldn't have been any worse than the governance that the Democrats in Congress and Democratic chief executives delivered over the last 60 years. Remember, it was the Democrats in the South who prevented the Civil Rights Act from being passed under the Eisenhower administration back in '55 when they first tried to put this up. It wasn't until '63 and after the assassination of Kennedy that finally got through with one of the most venal presidents in our history, I started to say Andrew Johnson, but Lyndon Baines Johnson. We finally got the Civil Rights Act, but it was the Democrats who prevented that thing from getting through in the '50s when Eisenhower tried
longest
to make it.
filibuster.
Yeah, exactly.
Longest filibuster.
Exactly, to stop civil rights from going through, and to find the I don't like labeling communities, but let's for a group, the Black American community voting in such large numbers for Democrats who've done nothing but play the victimization card and deliver nothing. I mean, okay, so let's go to Trump here. So let's see, the Platinum Plan, community opportunity zones, criminal justice reform. About 90% of people getting out of prison under criminal justice reform are Black men. Beyond that, he's historically record amount of funding for historically Black colleges and universities. All the regulation went away, which led to the lowest ever recorded rate of Black unemployment in this country. It's just, the list is endless. And listen, I'm about to make a video here, Tony. I'm going to call it the worst racist ever, Donald Trump. I mean, if the guy's a racist, he's an idiot because everything he's done is uplifted the Black community.
if he's an idiot, he's very bad at it. And I love them trying to make these comparisons to Nazism and to Hitler.
God.
I last I checked, Trump hasn't killed 6 million Jews and hasn't set up or is even out of it. In fact, he's done a lot for the Jewish community. He has Jewish people in his family. He's done a lot for the Black community. This is not a Hitler. Yep. And I almost think that the Democrat Party and people in the Democrat Party are projecting a little bit here as far as their motives.
Well, listen, Tony, I can't disagree with that more. I mean, listen, if we want to look at things historically, it was the Democrats overwhelmingly, not exclusively, but overwhelmingly, who were behind the Ku Klux Klan, who were behind Jim Crow, who were behind denying the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which we passed because the states in insurrection couldn't vote. So we got it through pretty quickly after the end of the Civil War. My army, which predated me by a century, was in the South ensuring Reconstruction took place. And when the army was withdrawn, that's when these racist and bigots from the Democratic Party primarily implemented all these things. And it's fascinating to see. It was King Franklin Roosevelt himself, the deity himself, who imprisoned Japanese Americans in concentration camps. But they're calling Trump a Nazi. It's just ludicrous. Yeah. It's ludicrous.
And you know, the Democrat Party has been that way since slavery, or even before. And then all of a sudden, miraculously, around the 60s, somewhere around the late 60s, they just switched. Let me explain what I think about the switch. The Republicans never switched. They've always been for freedom for everybody. They've always been for the Constitution applying for everybody, no matter your religion, your race. It's the Democrats who switched, not their opinion, not their ideas of race, but how they were perceived, because they still feel that Blacks are insignificant or an inferior race, because they have to now apply helping them. They have to apply making Republicans the bad guy so they can help the poor inferior Blacks through whatever thing that they need to achieve. And they use it for political power. Republicans don't believe that Blacks or any race other than white are inferior. They don't believe that. They believe they're an equal part of humanity, and we all need to be under the umbrella of the Constitution as it stands, as it is.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm going to get to a comment here in the chat just a second from John Jarvis, which is a very poignant one about Amy Comey. It's always hard to say her name because I expect to say Comey, but Amy Coney Bryant. But I'll get to that in a moment. But no, absolutely, it's beyond frustrating to see this nonsense, the way that they just play this card all the time. But let me go ahead and get John's comment here. So John Jarvis said, Chris, so it's already started. Amy Barrett's Black children are being dragged into the limelight. These people have no shame whatsoever. But you know what, Tony? They don't realize that hundreds of thousands of American families have adopted, if not millions, have adopted children, and many have gone. Those who are unable to have children of their own, not that entire group, that's a subset, who've gone abroad to adopt children and do great things for children from Russia, from Romania, from Africa, from India, all these places. I suspect a lot of these people are going to be deeply offended by this attack on this woman for adopting 2 children from Haiti. I don't know if these people have been to Haiti, but it's not exactly, Majorca or Monaco.
Oh, no. I agree with you. I think that, but I want to believe, and I'm not sure if it's actually going to come to fruition, but I want to believe that the American people are going to see the Democrats for what they are if they do this. They did. They weren't at all pleased with the Democrats, how they treated Kavanaugh and what they put him and his family through. It was totally, totally unreasonable. And I have a feeling if they go down this road before an election, I think it's going to hurt them.
No, I agree.
It should.
Well, it ought to hurt them because it's disgraceful behavior. It's what's interesting about this country, and I've always liked about it, but now people are trying to turn this on its head and make us like the rest of the world, is that, if I had grown up in Europe, I'd have been screwed, Tony, because I went to university at the age of 17. I was poor. I went on federal assistance, state loans, and grants, and I worked and all that. That's not why I was screwed. But I didn't apply myself. I kind of ran around campus and had a good time and left after 1 year with a 1.52 GPA, a grade point average, and on academic probation in my last quarter at Ohio University. So if I was in Europe, that'd have been it. done and dusted. You're done. You don't get another opportunity. It's time for you to be a baker, a candlestick maker, or go work in a garage somewhere. But that's not America. America's a place of rebirth and second opportunities. And more importantly, Tony, it's not a place where the sins or the accomplishments of our fathers or our grandfathers or grandmothers matter. It doesn't matter. You are who you are. And Martin Luther King said it the best, the content of your character, that's what really matters. Now, it seems to me like there's this move afoot by leftists to kind of overturn that now, and that particularly with nonsense like reparations and systemic racism and all this nonsense that's going on and on. Any thoughts on those comments?
Well, I've done quite a few cartoons about that as far as what their idea. I don't believe this Black Lives Matter or the Antifa or any of that are even remotely concerned about race. That is not what they're doing here. And I'll try to communicate that in some of my cartoons. What they're actually interested in doing is overthrowing the country, and they're using race. Yeah. They're using race to do it. They're using whatever place they can stick a wedge and divide the American people so that they can bring down this country, because they're what they actually are, and what communism is control freaks. They can't stand freedom. They can't stand democracy. Democrats say they're for democracy. They're not for democracy. They want to control everything, and they want to control elections. They want to put millions of votes into the mail system to overturn it, to cause chaos, whatever they need to do to not allow Trump to be president, because I think they know they're in trouble. And so whatever they say they're for, they're against, and whatever they say they're against, they're probably for.
Well, Tony, I think you hit it spot on here. And what gets me is it's so easy to get people involved in an emotive fashion when you use race, because I think it's a combination of it's a painful subject for some people. People are very wildly uninformed about it, and it's a useful tool, and it works time and again, over and over again. It's used. I mean, just giving you a little view on Africa there, because I'm an Africanist. That's what was used in Zimbabwe 20 years ago. I told people it had nothing to do with race. These aren't racists who live in Zimbabwe. Most of the white Zimbabweans who were racist left, because there was still apartheid in South Africa, and they moved to South Africa in 1980, 81, 82. Now, I am not disparaging Rhodesians who went to South Africa, many of whom were not racist. I'm just saying that there was a number who were, and those people left. So the white folks who stayed in Zimbabwe were overwhelmingly committed to being Zimbabweans. They were white Africans. And then 20 years later, after they've pilfered everything they can steal from the economy, from every sector, the only thing left is the commercial agriculture sector, so that they have no choice. They go after that, and they go after the commercial agriculture sector, destroy it, and they say it's all about race. These people came and stole our land 90 years ago, when in fact 42% of all the land was purchased under that majority black government from 1980 to 2000. So they didn't care about black Zimbabweans. They cared about power. And as I warned people 20 years ago, once the white community is gone, they'll turn on the Ndebele community. And now we see happening in Zimbabwe, political opposition party members of parliament are being arrested and accused of making false statements, thrown in jail, shackled to the floor, Tony, shackled to the floor. A political, a newspaper journalist is shackled to the floor for 18 hours a day. He can't move to even go to the toilet. And they're getting away with this, and they're doing it to black people because they don't care about race. It's a tool.
It's a tool. And that's exactly what the Democrats are doing in this country. They're using these tools to advance their power, their control. It doesn't take much to see the other side. It's just that the media isn't showing you the other side. They're not focusing on what happens in a country like Venezuela when people come out of that country and tell you the horrors that are going on there. Democrats are not interested in that, because a lot of similarities between our country and Venezuela as far as what's happening there and what it's doing to the people. But all they care about is their power. They think they're going to be immune to the outcome of some of their policies, but they're not.
No, that's a good point. And from the Venezuelan standpoint, I had Daniel DiMartino, who is a PhD candidate at Columbia University, who came here for education, escaped from Venezuela, was born into this nonsense. And he's one of a number of Venezuelans who've come to America, hundreds of thousands, to flee from that disaster from Chavez and his successor. It's just an utter disaster here, right here in our hemisphere. Now, Venezuela was not the crown jewel of the world economically, but it was not a poor state. And yes, there was wealth disparity, but even the poor weren't starving or living in abject poverty the way they are now under socialism after they nationalized everything. And, it's funny, Tony, about the leftists and socialists, this time This time we'll get it right. You know,
Yeah,
the Soviets got it wrong. This time we'll get it right.
right. And exactly. And I think a lot of the people, and that is what communists and socialists do. They go into a country, our country, Venezuela, Cuba, wherever in the world, and they tell the people, well, most of us aren't doing very well. So here's what we need to do. And then they do it, and then they implicate their policies, and then nobody's doing well. Even the poor people are even doing worse, to where they don't have toilet paper, where they're eating their zoo animals, where they're eating their pets. These type of things are prevalent among most of all the communist countries that have been taken over by Marxism. And of course, like you said, this time we're going to get it right. America is going to be different if we implement socialism or Marxism. But never happens, because eventually, like Thatcher said, you run out of other people's money.
No, she was spot on. That's one of the great quotes, I have to say. But it seems like the left hates choice. Well, not entirely. They do like choice when it comes to abortion. They like that choice. And the death of 300,000 black children every year in this country through abortion, which, if it wasn't for interracial marriages amongst blacks and whites and Asians who mix with black Americans, and for black immigrants coming in from Africa, the percentage of black Americans in this country would be declining because of the abortions. And so it's holding steady at 13.5%. But now it's no longer the second largest minority group in the country. Now been eclipsed by Hispanics because of what's been happening on our border for the last 40 years. And so it's interesting. They hate choice, except for that choice.
Absolutely. If it comes to owning a weapon, or if it comes to going to church, and you can really tell how much choice they love when now they're using the coronavirus to implement even more tyranny. So this is a good example. You're getting your 8-month trial of socialism or tyranny in the last few months. So.
Well, yeah, this is kind of, take it home and try it on for size. We've tried it on for size, and we found out that it's horrific. Not as if I didn't know that already, but here in Pennsylvania, the District Judge Stickman out there in the Western District of Pennsylvania has declared virtually everything that Tom Wolf, our governor, did as unconstitutional. Of course, the typical left response is to come out with their arrogance and their dismissiveness of the court and their knowing everything, because they're just the geniuses in every facet of life. And he's come out, and they're going to appeal it, of course, and go shopping. I wouldn't be surprised if it winds up in the circuit court, the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco, even though it's a case of Pennsylvania, so it'll have to go to the Supreme Court. But his actions, as I said in February, March, were unconstitutional at the time. They violated our federal Constitution, which I spent 36 and a half years in uniform supporting and defending. And then he also violated the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's just absolutely crazy, the behavior of these totalitarian fascists.
Well, what they're using to implement their totalitarian policies. They're using a virus that kills less than 99% of the people. If you're elderly, if you're above 80, you have a zero. I don't want to say the exact, but it's a very low. That's even a low rate of people that are dying. So I think that it's a serious virus. You need to protect the people that are vulnerable, but let everybody live their lives. And they're not taking into account all the people that are dying because of the lockdown, all the people that are inconvenienced or unhealthy because of the lockdown. And there are a lot. But the media, of course, is only interested in what supports their narrative. For instance, Black Lives Matter, except if you live in Chicago in the wrong part of town. Black Lives Matter unless you're a cop. So you can see how the narrative is stretched across, whether it's about COVID, whether it's about Black Lives Matter. They politicize just about everything to fit a narrative, and that narrative is usually leaning towards Marxism.
No, I can't disagree with you on that one, Tony. We're gonna have to, we got to stop. Everything you're saying, I agree with. Everything I'm saying, you agree with. So we're gonna have to find something we disagree on.
Yeah. having a regular choir here.
Yeah. By the way, I noticed over your shoulder there it says Sunday 9 in all red. I'm guessing that was for the stream today. That's on your board behind you. That's your reminder. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. It's awesome that you set up. Remember, but yeah. So let me very quickly do a bit of housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Chris Wide Africa on the Indaba Africa channel here live on YouTube. I'm Chris, right here in Central Pennsylvania. My Sunday special feature guest today is A.F. Branco, Tony Branco, who is a political cartoonist and satirist. And he does some very biting commentary. I have some more comments from the chat, but I'm going to put up one of your cartoons right here, which you won't be able to see. But let me see if I can pull this up very quickly here. This is one you just did about the Democrats wearing a tracksuit with a Molotov cocktail. And in the background, there's a graffiti of Death to America, Antifa, BLM. The city is burning. And it says, "Stop Trump's SCOTUS nomination. We're going to burn this down again." Yeah. Well, there's a threat, right? That's you already burned it down. What else are you going to burn down? It's unbelievable.
Burn it down again.
Yeah. And interesting. So from the chat there, Tony, there was another comment from John Jarvis, a really good one here. And let me just get to it. John says, "I'm an avid observer of U.S. politics. What's the opinion on the first debate?" Well, we haven't had it. It's coming up on Tuesday. But what's your opinion on the first debate? Theoretically, Biden should get destroyed, but word is that Trump may go in somewhat unprepared. But Tony, before you answer it, I'm not worried about Trump being unprepared. I'm more concerned about the objectivity of Chris Wallace, who I think was a decent journalist, but somehow he must have drank the wrong Kool-Aid, and he's been an avid Trump hater for the past 3 years. And I don't think that Chris Wallace can be objective in this debate. And I think that Fox News, which has been anything less than fair and balanced for the past couple of years, is going to be something we have to pay attention to. What are your thoughts on the debate Tuesday?
I agree with you. I think that Chris Wallace is is a never Trumper or anti-Trump. I don't know where he aligns specifically on politics, but when I've watched Chris, I think he has a tendency to let Democrats ramble on, and he's too quick to interrupt Republicans or conservatives when he has them on. So I don't know how it's going to end up, but I do know that that Trump, like you said, is probably very well prepared and is preparing this time for the debates. And I think Biden is trying to. The only problem I see is that we put Biden's expectations down so low. Like if he shows up and he isn't wearing a diaper, he's won the debate already. So.
Well, that's already the New York Times and Washington Post headline. They've already written it for Wednesday morning. The sober assessment and performance of Joe Biden at last night's debate is indicative of the calm nature of someone we need instead of a rabid, xenophobic racist like Orange Man Bad. There's your headline. Right.
Basically, let me rephrase it. If he shows up and he has clothes on, he'll win the election, win the debate.
Well, I could just see Joe Biden showing up with no shorts on and boxer shorts and a blazer because he's used to sitting and hiding in his bunker somewhere under a nondescript building there. Sorry to steal a line from Mark Levin, but under a nondescript building of steel and glass somewhere in Delaware where he's hiding out. This is the guy was always a gaffe clown, but I mean, this is sad. I think that someone should be charged with elder abuse with this guy. It's really, really sad.
But expect a lot of cliched comments. Yeah. Cliched. Every time Trump says this, he's lined up with firing a cliched response to get a laugh or to get something to diffuse whatever Trump is saying. I'm expecting that to happen. As far as him even showing up for the debates, that's even kind of up in the air. I think that they're searching high and low for a really valid excuse for him not to show up.
Well, let's do which I hope is a counterfactual at a future date. But let's pretend that Sleepy Joe wins the election, okay? And he becomes president. My prediction for months now has been that regardless of who he picked, remember, of course, his highest esteem ideal for picking a vice presidential nominee or candidate was it had to be a black woman. Of course, that makes you qualified. Nothing against black women. Black women are perfectly qualified. I can think of a lot of them. Condoleezza Rice would be a good choice, for somebody's vice presidential candidate. But lots of them out there. But I mean, that was his sole standard, to be a black woman. So that lowered it down to about 23 million potential candidates in the entire country, 330 million right there. But anyway, so if he shows, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my comment. I'm gonna have to stop there. I'm gonna get a little off the rails with that one, so I'll come back to it later on. But let me shift a little bit here. So Tony, so you're, I'm sorry, I was going down a dark hole. I have to stop there.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, so sorry. So you've been doing this for 10 years, you said. So is this your full-time career now? Is that what you do? And if it is, what were you doing before this, before you became this cartoonist?
Well, see, I owned my own business for quite a while, and then I liquidated it. It was a screen printing, graphic design business here in the Northwest. And then I kind of moved into some other things and worked for a corporation in sales for a while. I won't specifically name the corporation, but was laid off from that. And right around that time, Obama was president, and around 2010, I believe, is when like a lot of the healthcare stuff started coming up. I started getting irritated with, well, they were trying to take over a lot of our freedoms through the guise of caring for your health. So I came out, started doing these cartoons and posting them on Facebook and so forth. And my following started to grow a little bit. Friends on Facebook, started out with 100, maybe 200, and then it went to 1,000, and then just grew and grew and grew. And then pretty soon people were coming to me asking for cartoons, if they could post them in their newspaper, if they could post them on their websites. So just a long story short, that's where I'm at today. Was eventually syndicated through creators. And that's about the end of the story. And now I'm doing what I do.
No, it's a fascinating one, and I suspect, based on the amazing cartoons you do, that you must love what you're doing now. It must be very fulfilling.
Absolutely. I feel for a lot of people that they don't have a platform to vent or a platform to get the word out. But I've always said, in back when I first started doing this, when I was working for that corporation in sales, I would turn on the radio. And I remember people like Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck always saying that everybody has a part to play. You got to find your part and you got to play it. And I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but you got to be able to get out and do what you get, whether it's in a break room, whether it's your neighbor, whether you have a family gathering. Don't be, in their face, but there's opportunities to get the word out, whether it's working for your local campaign. We all have a part to play, and I feel I'm playing my part. I could always do more. I think we could always do more, but I think I'm playing my part to get the word out, get the truth out.
Well, for me, of course, it was difficult for a long time. Like, for instance, the YouTube channel I started in 2006, just months after YouTube became up in existence, long before Alphabet and Google bought it. But I had to be very circumspect. Of course, I was an intelligence officer in the intelligence community, and I did some other work that you can't talk about and you can't be known. So I had to be circumspect there. But just generally speaking, also as a commissioned officer, you just can't be running around stating policy and prescribing policy, and you've got to be very careful about elected officials. So I was very circumspect because that was my role. And no objections to that. I voluntarily did that, and I'm proud to have served this country all around the world and helped freedom and helped many millions of people. And that's not an embellishment. That's a fact. It's millions. But the point is that now I'm free from the yoke of that. I have full use of my constitutional rights, at least until the left takes them away. But for now, I can have free speech. And so when I first started my channel, it was focused on Africa. And a lot of the people on my channel, especially from South Africa, were very interested in U.S. politics. They wanted me to start talking about it. And I was reticent, not because I'm afraid to speak about U.S. politics. I'm happy to do that. But I was worried about being deplatformed and then losing my chance to have a voice out there, particularly in South Africa, but on Africa in general. So I started this thing called Liberty Under Assault. It's a playlist, and so this video will be listed under that. It's called Liberty Under Assault: Politics in the USA. And I've started interviewing congressional candidates. I had Dr. Victor Davis Hanson on the channel recently, and I'm trying to get some other folks on here to talk about these issues. But you're right, everyone has a part to play, and for now, I think for me, this is a part for me to play to spread the word and also dispel the myths and rumors about things.
Well, I'm Victor David Hanson, Dr. Victor David Hanson's biggest fan. I think I'm his biggest.
No. You're behind me, man. You're right behind me.
Oh, I haven't got to the point where I'm camped out at his door or anything, but he's great. what a reasonable voice
Yeah.
to have in these times. He's very what a national treasure.
He is. There's two of these guys out there. He in military and political history, and then Thomas Sowell for economics. But Thomas Sowell is really getting up there in years. He's really getting up there in years. I think he's 93 now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. I like to read. You can go back and read Thomas Sowell's some of his op-eds from 20 years ago, and it's they're still poignant. You can look back and look at some of these op-eds and say, gosh, I wish we would have applied that then.
No, absolutely. So we got a couple really good comments coming here, but before I do that, I need to do this real quick, Tony, to let you know. So on my stream, one of my shticks, one of my themes is rugby. I'm a huge rugby fan. I've had a rugby segment, and I usually wear a rugby jersey. So today, since we're talking USA, I got Tony Branco on. I'm wearing a USA rugby jersey. So there you go. But that's just sort of my thing. I
have my famous jersey on.
That must be the party platform for the Democratic National Committee you're wearing right there. I saw it right on your shirt. There's nothing there.
Yeah, there you go.
No substance whatsoever on that platform. Yikes, that's funny. So let me get something from the chat here. It was a really good question from Proudly Neanderthal, who, of course, he has interest. Now, I would like to measure my DNA against Proudly Neanderthal because I know that I have higher than average Neanderthal DNA based on my genome. So, but Proudly Neanderthal, that's his username, says, what is Tony's opinion on Charlie Hebdo? And why is Islam off limits? I don't know that Islam is off limits. You have to be brave. And when I say Islam, I'm talking about political Islam. I'm not talking about the faith of Islam. But what's your thoughts on Charlie Hebdo, the French thing that got everybody upset, and they wound up doing all these attacks in France?
Well, I think that we all need to come together to protect free speech, nationally, internationally, all the way. We need to do everything we can. We cannot allow these people back from 2,000 years of the Stone Age to dictate what we do today. And as far as I have drawn a few cartoons about this issue, you have to go back a couple of years, but my opinion is pretty firm on this.
No, I think that's a great point. The thing is that people always want to turn to some political fire thing. When I was a student at l'École d'État-Major, which is the staff college in Tunisia 20 years ago, I was there as a captain, and each of the foreign students were expected to do a briefing on their country. And I did a briefing about the United States, its history, its politics, its culture, its economy, and faith, religion, language. And I pointed out that America had 9 million Jews, roughly 9 million Jews, and we had over 4 million, almost 5 million Muslims. And the students like, Captain Wyatt, excuse me, you have Muslims in America? Yeah, man, they're all over the place. We have over 1,000 mosques in America. I think we have something like 4,000 mosques now. And he's like, that's not what we were told. We were told that America hates Muslims and you don't let Muslims. I'm like, no, we have freedom of religion. A state cannot institute a state religion like the Church of England. That's why we came up with this. And you can't discriminate against faith. Well, there's an effort today to do it, but legally, the Constitution protects. And they were absolutely astounded that we had Muslims in America. It blew their mind.
I know. Could you imagine Feinstein saying to a Muslim person of faith that the dogma is rich with you or big with you, like she did Miss Barrett?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. So, hey, let's get back to this topic real quick there, Tony, of this systemic racism thing. So when people make this argument about systemic racism, this is the point I make. All right, there'll always be stupid people. There'll always be people who are bigoted. Bigotry is rife in the world. It's learned behavior. We learn wrong things. Jews are stingy. Blacks are this. The whites are this. We hear all this bigotry. But bigotry can be unlearned. But racism, that's kind of seeped in people's hearts. It's hard to get rid of. So unfortunately, we'll have those people. But the systemic racism narrative is BS, in my view. And let me give a perfect example of this. Since 1990, we've had over 2.5 million, close to 3 million Black Africans who've moved to this country, either through education visas or work visas, or people who won the lottery and come here and be able to migrate. I know hundreds of Black immigrants to America all over the Mid-Atlantic region, in Maryland, in Virginia, in D.C., in Pennsylvania, in New York, and I don't know any of them living on public assistance. Any of them are being pulled over because they're Black. Any of them being harassed harassed because they're black. Every person I've talked to, and I know personally, has had an incredible experience here. They have been successful. Nothing has held them back from achieving in this country because of the color of their skin. So when I hear this systemic racism, my point is that this is a lazy argument from a culture that's rooted in victimization by politicians who use race as an excuse to bifurcate society and divide us. Did I miss it?
You did not miss it at all. In fact, that's exactly right, and there's not much to add to it. My opinion has always been that the communists will take whatever grievance they can find to divide the American people. Systemic racism is, if you compare the way blacks were treated in the 50s and the 60s because of Democrats to today, how far we actually elected a black president predominantly by white people.
White voters.
So,
yep.
Yeah, and systemic racism, I believe that's nothing more than a tactic to divide. Is there some? Yeah, but you can't take some of the situations that I've seen as far as done by that have been implemented by police and look at that as a total racist type of view when it happens to whites too.
Yeah.
What I think happens is a lot of the areas that are economic areas that are low economic areas or people that aren't doing so well happen to be in a lot of the black communities. That's not because of racism. That's just historically correct. And a lot of the crime is in black areas, not because they're black, but because of they're poor. So when police get called to these areas frequently, they're going to, of course, run into a lot of problems in that area. So systemically, no, but it's being confused. It's being confused as racist.
No, I absolutely agree. And one of my biggest arguments, and I've made this for over 3 decades, it irritates me, Tony, is that people confuse bigotry and racism. And I think there's a very clear distinction between the two of them. So I like to point out now, you and I have a certain age that this will resonate with you, but not all of my foreign audience and not even some of my American audience will get this. But the ultimate bigot, not racist, but bigot, was Archie Bunker on All in the Family. He was a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male, and if you weren't white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male, he had a problem with you, including his daughter, including his son-in-law, who was a Polak, including his wife, who was a dingbat, and his neighbor, who was black, and the list goes on and on and on. But the funny thing about Archie Bunker is that as a bigot, and I don't know if this was intent of Norman Lear or what, because he's a leftist, but eventually what happened is Archie Bunker needed a blood transfusion, if you remember famously on the program, and he got blood. And it was from a black man. When he found out he had black blood in him, he didn't know what to do. He was dumbfounded. He was gobsmacked. And then from that point on, his bigotry sort to change, and it diminished. And he realized that all the stereotypes and things he heard about other groups of people were just simply wrong, and his position was wrong. So that's the thing I think about bigotry. You can unlearn bigotry. It may be difficult. It may be easy, but it's bigotry. Racism is very different. Racism is advocating one race is above another race. And the problem I have with that is last time I checked, there's kingdom, phylum, class, order, KP, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genesis, species. I remember that from high school. But KP, COFGS. But we're all the same species. We're Homo sapiens. The difference in our DNA is so infinitesimal. I mean, chimpanzees have a wider variety of DNA than we do amongst chimpanzees. And it's just ludicrous that people take immutable characteristics like appearance and skin pigmentation as a basis for this nonsense by dividing people. It really is sad.
Yeah, and like I said, it's used to divide, and that is exactly what communists do. They use grievances such as race to divide so that they can get more power. Yeah. And it's just a shame, and especially in this climate. But they're burning down cities, and that's why Democrats are kind of turning a blind eye to some of these riots and these burnings, and because they think it's somehow in the long run going to help their cause or their narrative or their power or grow their power. I hope that it does the opposite. We need to clean this up. We need to have law and order.
Absolutely, and that's that's where it went wrong in Zimbabwe. It was no law and order. It was a violation of the abrogation of the rule of law and order. And of course, that's always also used as a red herring of racism. It's about law and order and racism. No, it's not. By the way, it's really sad because the parallels we see taking place in the inner cities of the United States today are identical to things that happened in South Africa or in Zimbabwe and what are now happening in South Africa. It's really, really a sad situation. And the damage goes far beyond economic. It's societal cohesion. It's relations. It's the future. It's opportunity lost. It's really disheartening to see this kind of nonsense taking place, Tony.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was a good comment here really quickly from, let's see, this was from Yanni Meyer, who's in South Africa. Yanni was my intrepid field reporter recently for something called the Witkois Monument. I don't know if you know about this, Tony, but in South Africa, there's a farm field on a hillside, a ridgeline in the northern part of South Africa near a town called Polokwane, which used to be called Pietersburg before they renamed it. But the owner of the land has set up a monument with everyone's name on it, those who've been tortured and murdered in the rural farm killings in South Africa, which is somewhere over 3,000 South Africans have been killed in the last 26 years on farms, if not more. But they didn't start this until years after it started, so there's only a few thousand names on that hill. But they have these steel crosses up there that are painted white. And Yanni went to every year they update them and they repaint and they have a ceremony. So they just had that last week or so. And Yanni was my field reporter out there with really bad telephone connection. His data was breaking up all the time, but he did a great job. So I thank Yanni for that. But Yanni says cartoonists somehow are given more leniency by some governments. He says, I think of our own Shapiro, and I don't know if you know Shapiro. He's a very famous political cartoonist in South Africa who ridiculed P.W. Botha and the National Party before 1994. That was the apartheid government. Do not underestimate the power of a good cartoon. I think that's a great statement. Do not underestimate the power of a good cartoon. Tony, do you find that your cartoons resonate and have they had a big impact that you've been able to notice?
I think I notice it. I don't notice, I only notice in a very myopic way how it's doing. I know that they're out and about further and there's a wider scope than what I'm actually seeing because I don't see every share. I don't see every retweet. So I'm hoping that it resonates. People tell me that it's resonating. Some people are coming back to me and saying that they were banned from Facebook because they posted one of my cartoons. Although I haven't been banned from Facebook yet, but I get these comments. People like James Woods and the president have retweeted my cartoons. Don Jr. just retweeted one the other day. So I know in that scope, when they get retweeted quite a bit by somebody that's popular, Dinesh D'Souza retweets and shares my cartoons quite often. So in that vein, they're getting out there.
No, absolutely. And I have to say that thank you, Tony, so much, because on the occasions, I've reached out a few occasions when I saw a particularly poignant one, which I think was apropos, and I've asked your permission if I can use it. And you're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It's fantastic. Because I'm always terrified of running into copyright infringement, that sort of thing, because I have the permission from a South African musician, Giselle, to play all of her music, to promote her music. And I get hit with these constant software copyright claims and blocking my videos, and I have to go back and delete it out of there. So, but thank you so much. You've been very generous with that. But speaking of which, Dinesh D'Souza, what a treasure. What a great American that man is.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's coming out with a couple of good movies. He's come out with books. I was in one of his books. There was a cartoon that had a Nazi beating on a guy with a T-shirt on that said free speech. And then side by side, it had another picture of a Antifa guy beating on a guy, the same position, the same pose, beating on a guy with a T-shirt with free speech. That cartoon, speaking of it resonated quite well. And I still see that cartoon almost every day out there. And those are the type of cartoons that I'm hoping really send a message. And as far as caring whether people share, I don't care if people share my message. I originally got into doing this because of our message. I wasn't concerned about me making any money or becoming rich with it. I had something I needed to say and I wanted to get it out there and I wanted people to share it and I want our message out there any way possible. And I still feel that way. Now, Creator Syndicate, they, of course, I'm contracted with them. So if anybody wants to, whenever it's a commercial type thing, they have to be involved in that. But yeah, as far as sharing on Facebook and social media, I'm all for it.
That's awesome. So Tony, there's we're coming up on an hour, and I don't want to keep you too long on a Sunday. I'm sure you have things to do, but if you can indulge us a few more minutes, there's a couple good questions here I'd like to get to.
Sure.
Okay, great. So first off, there was I've shared the link to your channel, comically, or not your channel, your website, Comically Incorrect. I'm going to put up on the screen right now for people to take a peek at while I discuss a few things. So you and I are going to disappear from the screen, but there's my browser on the screen, folks. That's Comically Incorrect, home of cartoonist AF Branco. That's Tony Branco's site. And along those lines, I've been sharing the link a couple times during the stream there, Tony. And Paulie Fire, who's a fireman in South Africa, says Tony's website is great with an exclamation point. Thanks for the link.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've just I've put it up again. There's the page, folks. You really got to check it out. It's amazing work here. And as excuse me, as Tony said, he's interested in if I get Jeremy Nell on the channel and then have the two of them. I think that'll be a fantastic stream. And so let me switch real quick because this is a very good question about that, Tony, which someone just asked a moment ago. I'm trying to see who it was asking about. What are your thoughts on cancel culture? The reason I asked that is because one of my viewers just asked it, but also we've seen, as I mentioned, Jeremy Nell has been getting canceled left and right on platforms. Do you have any thoughts on cancel culture, and does it concern you at all?
Well, the people who say they're for freedom of speech and they're for freedom
Yeah, exactly.
are the people that are trying to cancel everybody. They're afraid of free speech. There again lies in that's the Marxist view. They're not for democracy. They're not for free speech. They're not for you having control over your own lives. They want to control everything. And that's what I think of cancel culture. That I don't see people running around saying, don't watch CNN, don't watch MSNBC, don't watch don't listen to NPR. I don't see those. I don't see conservatives saying that. I do hear a lot of even Obama pontificating about don't watch Fox. Fox News is bad. Fox News this. For 8 years he said that. All of a sudden, Trump says fake news, and they have a meltdown. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's quite right. Listen, but I lost the battle to Trump. He has a bigger platform. But when Trump started saying fake news, I'm like, no, it's yellow journalism. It's yellow journalism. Of course, I'm a historian. I'm thinking of the Spanish-American War. So I mean, we've seen this before. In fact, there was a time in our history for about a century in which newspapers were entirely propaganda outfits by and large, and that's how they made their money by running around with all kinds of conspiracy nonsense and that sort of thing. But it's fascinating that you talk about that. It is the very people who want to cancel who claim that they're free speech advocates. They're not. I mean, this is the height of irony, is that UC Berkeley, where Students for Democratic Society had its birth in the 1960s, and Tom Hayden was there and all these other people, and it's seen as the birthplace of free speech on campus, which isn't true, but that's the view people have of it. But the irony is that UC Berkeley goes out of the way to ban Milo Yiannopoulos from coming out there, an openly homosexual conservative Republican. Some of the things he says are quite outlandish, so I'm not necessarily sure what he says, but they ban Milo, and then they protest Dinesh D'Souza. Okay, so hang on a second. Let's see. Dinesh is an immigrant. While technically Indians are Caucasians, he's definitely a person of color based on his appearance, and he's wildly successful. But why would they want to ban Dinesh D'Souza unless, of course, he made an honest biography film about Barack Hussein Obama?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. So that's kind of what's going on there. But listen, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but a lot of connected people. I've been trying to get a hold of Dinesh to get him on my channel and some other folks, and maybe I'll reach out to you privately and see if you can help me link up with some of these folks like Dinesh and James Woods. I'll tell you what, if I want to get my channel blocked, I guarantee I just get James Woods on as a guest, and then my stream will be blocked immediately after that.
I love James Wood. I'm glad he's on our side. Boy, the guy's a soldier, I tell you.
He is, and every time Twitter cancels him, it just pisses people off because they get mad at Twitter. It's his stuff on Twitter is unbelievably it's acerbic, it's spot on, and the only reason I followed Twitter for a while was I was looking for things from James Woods because they were just so well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the other people Devin Nunes has endorsed, put an endorsement on my next book that's coming out in October, along with Lars Larson and Larry Elder.
Larry Elder rocks. Larry Elder rocks too.
Joe Dan Gorman from Intellectual Frog Legs. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's becoming quite popular. There's actually, that's another point. I have a book coming out in October called Keep America Laughing at the Left.
At the left. Who's your publishing house? Are you able to share that?
No, I'd self-published,
Oh, okay.
sort of self-published. So I self-published. This is my third volume 3 of my comically incorrect cartoons. The last couple of books did really well. My calendar's coming out again, and my calendars usually sell out before the end of the year. So if anybody, as my books do, my books are pretty much sold out. They're hard to get. In fact, I saw on either eBay or Amazon where they're selling my first edition for like $300.
Are you serious? Wow.
Yeah, I'm going.
Well, that's
Wow,
awesome.
they
I hope you got a case of them tucked away. You can get wealthy there.
Yeah, I wish I did. I didn't. Yeah, I'm selling them for like $25. They're selling them for $300. They must have kept a couple and knowing that they were going to be a short edition. So,
well, let me put up on the screen really quick. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to give you an opportunity to mention that. But so on your site there, you've got some merch on your site. It's on the screen for people to look at right now. Shop.
I don't have the book on there. The book isn't. The new book isn't up
well, that's
on
what I was
my.
going to
Oh yeah,
ask.
it is.
I was going to ask
there.
because there's a tab for books. Yeah. It says books and children's books. But let me see if I can get if it shows up on there. It has books in there, but I'm not seeing your books. Where are your books?
Well, if you go hit the political cartoon tab,
okay,
it'll show. I posted the book on the political cartoon page. If you hit the tab above the,
okay,
it'll show it there. Keep America Laughing at the left.
All right, I'm not finding it, but I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll make sure we find it so people can get it. So, and I'm going to tell you, look, Tony, you're going to have to do a better job putting your book front and center if you want to see it.
I know. Well, it just came out. It's just pre-order right now. So
okay. Well, good. Then maybe we can generate some buzz for it, get it out there. But
thank you.
No doubt. That's awesome. Listen, Tony, you've been a fantastic guest. I really enjoyed the conversation with you. I'd like to invite you back after Trump rolls to a big victory. Okay, in November. But so now that I've kind of let the cat out of the bag, that's not a big secret for you. But let me, would you mind giving a prediction on what you think is going to happen in the Electoral College and the popular vote in November? Because it's very difficult to predict, but I have a position. Let's see what your position is.
My position is that he's going to win in a landslide, although we're not going to, but the media is going to be, the mainstream media is troopers for the Democrats, so they're going to hold off on announcing the winner. They're going to try to corrupt it as much as possible. They're going to try to sabotage the election, the outcome as much as possible, for as long as possible. We may not know the winner well into February. So, and I think that's the design of mail-in voting. Mm-hmm. But I do think that Trump is going to win by a landslide. And that's why they're doing the mail-in voting. So,
to obfuscate, and that, I guess, before I let you go, then that actually, let's get back to SCOTUS. That when the notorious RBG passed away, I did a video within a half hour of that and put it on my site about Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away and the impact she had on the court and her positions. And I said at the time that when the Republicans under Obama's last year said, well, we're not going to nominate someone, then I said, well, you know, out of fairness, perhaps the Republicans shouldn't be doing that now. But on a chance to collect my thoughts and think about that in a day or two after that, I thought about it and said, well, you know what? The court is not really a court that is conservative. People are mistaken by that. Chief Justice John Roberts is a fence sitter. He's not a conservative. And when he voted to declare the Unaffordable Care Act constitutional and twisting the logic of that, which basically said that in order to be an American, you must pay a fee. You have to pay a fee to be an American, because if you don't have insurance, which is mandated under that unconstitutional law, then you must pay a fine to the government, which means in order to be an American, you must pay a fee. That goes against everything that's American, and it is just wrong.
Absolutely.
So he's a fence sitter. So my argument is that the court right now, with her passing, is not a conservative court. It's a 4-4 court, because the majority of the time he's going to vote with the left, which is unfortunate. So, and wherever he sits, it's not like it's going to be 5-3 in a vote. It's going to be 4-4, and the court's going to be hung, and we're going to have a constitutional crisis. So in my view, on retrospect, I think that it's necessary for Trump to nominate a pick, and Amy Coney Barrett is out there now, and hopefully she'll be confirmed before the election so that we definitely have a clear court with 9 justices, however they vote, but we have a clear court with 9. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you. I think that that they need to select somebody, and the Senate needs to vote on it. You know very well that if the shoe was on the other foot, the Democrats would discount anything they ever said over the last couple of years about the Supreme Court, whether or not they would do this. They would slide it right by, and they would do exactly what the Republicans are doing, and then some. So they need to do what they're supposed to do. president is obligated to select a candidate, a nominee, and the Democrats and the the Senate is obligated to console and consent and to vote on the nominee.
Absolutely agree. Well, my prediction back in January was this, Tony. After the what I consider fraudulent impeachment, which was it was like an Andrew Johnson style impeachment, it was purely political. Because Tony, just give me a second here. Indulge me. I have to pull up the list of criminal charges from the House of Representatives that they sent to the Senate for the trial. Let's see. Violations of the Constitution, none. Violations of federal statutes, none. Okay, so there were no crimes, no high crimes or misdemeanors cited in the impeachment. But after the fraudulent impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump in January, I predicted before the Wuhan coronavirus, COVID-19, took hold, that Donald Trump was going to romp to an electoral college victory, winning at least 46 states. Probably, certainly over 40 was my prediction, but maybe as many as 46, and that he would win the popular vote by 2 to 4 million. That was January, before he was a xenophobe by banning Chinese flights. But since then, and since the George Floyd distortions and all the nonsense taking place, I kind of by July was getting a little concerned and said that Trump, not that he'd lose, but he might be in jeopardy. But the left has gone too far, and I'm back on the bandwagon. Trump is going to win 35 to 40 states by popular vote in electoral college, and I still think he's going to win. He's going to win the popular vote. That's my view, because I say that based on what I know, what I've seen anecdotally, and I've seen from looking at data as well over the past several years, is that between 5 to 9% of the electorate lies or simply misleads when they answer polls. They're going to vote for Trump, but they're not going to admit it, and they're not going to say it. A lot of people fear for their lives. I mean, people are being shot and murdered and tortured and beaten and their property burned because they're Trump supporters.
Yeah, and anecdotally, I find in my own situation, a lot of people are going to have switched their vote over to Trump who voted for Hillary last time. People and I was shocked. I'm shocked by people coming up to me and saying, I voted for Hillary last time, I'm voting for Trump this time. Don't tell anybody. Simply because of a lot of what's going on in our cities. They're burning down our cities, and people are very afraid. They're afraid of the overall attitude of the Democrat Party, the lawlessness, just the behavior in general, the accusing Trump of being a Hitler, there's just an array of things that I think the Democrats are underestimating.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today has been A.F. Branco, Tony Branco, who is a political cartoonist and satirist living in the land of Chaz, the sedition and insurrection and self-declared autonomous zones, people that should have been arrested for treason to the United States, but that's another topic. But he lives out in that part of the country. Tony, it's been fantastic having you as a guest. You've got a book coming out, a new book coming out in October. That's exciting. I'd like to get you back on after the election. Hopefully we can crack open a bottle of, I don't know, something nice and enjoy the basking in Trump and predicting what the next impeachment, fraudulent impeachment claim will be after he wins the election. But you're welcome to come back on the channel anytime. I want to thank you for coming on. You've been fantastic. Do you have any closing thoughts or things you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Thank you. Thank you for all your support out there. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your service too. I was an enlisted man in the Army, and you were an officer in the Army. So I have to salute you and say thank you, sir.
No, you're most welcome, Tony. It's fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Tony Branco, the cartoonist who draws these amazing, witty, comical, and very biting political satire cartoons. Tony, I'm going to put you in the waiting room, and I'm going to close out my stream real quick, okay?
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot. That's Tony Branco, ladies and gentlemen. Where are we at here? Sorry. Got to get my admin done a little bit. Okay, there goes Tony. All right, folks, back to the screen here. And now I'm looking kind of strange, bifurcated there, but hang on. I'll get you back here in just a second. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a fantastic conversation with A.F. Branco, Tony Branco, who's turned his desire to make a difference on the political scene in the country, frustrated about what was happening a decade ago or so, turned it into a job, and he's become quite famous, well known. His artwork has been repeatedly shown and promoted by Donald Trump, by Dinesh D'Souza, by Rush Limbaugh, and he said many other folks out there. Quite an interesting gentleman living in a fascinating part of the country, beautiful part of the country out there in the Pacific Northwest. I spent a lot of time out there. It's quite lovely. But I want to thank Tony being my guest today. It was fantastic. I want to thank you you all for tuning in. I'll be back on for the Night Owls edition tonight. That will be at 9:35 p.m. In Botswana and South Africa, 8:35 in Windhoek, Abuja, and London, and of course, famously at 15:35 Eastern Standard Time here in the U.S. for Stray Voltage, Night Owls edition. And Joe Emilio may or may not be on the channel. I think he might not be here, but we'll be talking about Joe Emilio tonight, the American comedian based in South Africa, who's confused whether he's Egyptian, Texan, South African, or just an American. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thanks to my guest, Tony. Wonderful. Let's see what happens, and hopefully Donald Trump will move on to a massive victory. And let's just close out the stream with this hat right here. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. God bless America, and God bless the 30 million Americans out there who make this the greatest station and the greatest experiment in the history of political discourse. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you later on the channel this evening, and I'm going to close out the stream right there. Everyone take care.